Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a bit different. We're not just looking at history, we're examining, well, a huge political gamble right after World War II.
Yeah, we're going back to the late 40s, early 50s. Europe was, just devastated.
And leaders were desperate for a way to make peace actually last this time.
Exactly. And the old ways, just governments agreeing to cooperate, well, everyone knew that wasn't enough anymore.
Right. Our sources really emphasize this. They needed something deeper, a real structural shift.
That's it. The big question wasn't if they should cooperate, but how. And the answer that came forward, thanks a lot to people like Robert Schuman, was this functionalist approach.
Functionalist approach, okay.
Yeah. The idea was, look, forget the grand sweeping federal plans for now. Start small. Focus on concrete things, specific sectors.
So build solidarity piece by piece.
Precisely. Create what they call de facto solidarity through actual achievements, step by step. The aim was to make war, especially between France and Germany, materially impossible.
Okay, I get it. So instead of arguing about flags or armies, you integrate the stuff you need to make war,
Like coal and steel.
Exactly. And that thinking led straight to the first two communities, the ones that really laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The European Coal and Steel Community, ECSC, and the European Atomic Energy Community, Euratom.
That's our focus today, understanding how these original structures worked, what the thinking was.
Right. Let's get clear on these two foundational blocks.
So it all kicks off with the Schuman Declaration in 1950.
Which wasn't just a speech, was it? It was more like a plan.
Absolutely. A blueprint. Short-term, sure, stop another war. But the long-term game was much bigger, building towards an ever closer union.
And the first brick in that foundation?
Coal and steel. That commitment became official with the Treaty of Paris in 1951. That's the key link you need to remember. ECSC equals Treaty of Paris.
Got it. ECSC, Treaty of Paris, and the objective.
Simple, but revolutionary. Put the production and trade of coal and steel under joint shared control.
Among the first members, who were they again?
The 6 founding states: France, West Germany, Italy, and then the Benelux countries: Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg.
It sounds technical, coal and steel.
Mm-hmm.
But politically, wow. You're talking about the absolute basic ingredients for industry, for war machines.
That's precisely the point. Tanks, factories, weapons, they all needed coal and steel.
So by pooling control, these 6 countries, especially France and Germany, were basically disarming each other, at least in that crucial industrial sense.
You got it. It was a brilliant move, really. Part economics, part psychology. But the real game changer wasn't just the what, it was the how, the structure they set up.
Okay, this sounds important. Our sources really hammer this home.
They should. Because, and this is the phrase to remember for any exam, the ECSC was the first real supranational organization in Europe.
Supranational. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Yeah.
Above the nations.
Exactly. It means the main ECSC body had real power, power independent of the national governments, at least within that specific coal and steel sector, totally new at the time.
That's incredible. They agreed to it so soon after the war. How did that work? What gave this new setup its teeth?
It mainly came down to the high authority. Think of it as the ECSC's executive engine.
The high authority.
It was genuinely supranational. It managed the common market, made decisions, could even impose fines or taxes on companies directly.
Without needing approval from, say, the French or German parliaments?
Correct. Within its specific area, its decisions were binding. That's supranational power in action.
Okay, but surely the national governments wanted some say. They didn't just hand over control completely, did they?
No, of course not. There were checks and balances. That's where the Council of Ministers came in, usually just called the Council.
And their job was?
To represent the national governments, the 6 founders. They were the intergovernmental element, providing a check on the high authority's power, especially for major decisions. It showed that balance, Giving up some power, but keeping national voices heard.
So high authority driving things forward, council keeping an eye on national interests. What else?
2 other key bodies. You had the Parliamentary Assembly, sometimes called the Common Assembly. Its role was democratic oversight, though its powers were initially quite limited.
And a court.
Yes, absolutely crucial. The Court of Justice. Its job was to make sure everyone played by the rules set out in the Treaty of Paris. Interpretations, disputes, the court sorted them out, ensuring the rules applied equally everywhere.
Making sure a decision made centrally actually stuck in Paris or Rome.
Exactly. It gave the whole system legal legitimacy.
Okay, this sounds like a really innovative structure. If it was working, why did it have an expiry date? That seems odd.
That's a really interesting point and important for understanding the mindset back then. The Treaty of Paris, the one creating the ECSC in 1951, it was specifically written to last for only 50 years.
50 years. So it was designed to be temporary.
In a way, it was like a test case, a proof of concept. Let's try this radical idea of pooling coal and steel for 50 years, see if it works, see if it builds trust.
So a test drive with a deadline, signed in 50 years means.
It means the ECSC, as a separate legal entity under the Treaty of Paris, officially ended in 2002.
And its functions were just absorbed.
Pretty much. By 2002, the broader European structures had evolved, and the ECSC's specific tasks related to coal and steel were integrated into that wider framework. It had done its job.
Okay, let's recap the ECSC quickly. Key things to remember.
Right. ECSC. Think Treaty of Paris, 1951. Focus. Coal and steel. Founders. The six. Big innovation. The high authority making it truly supranational. And remember that 50-year limit.
Got it. And for a memory tip, how about coal and steel unity through industry and a deadline?
I like it. Captures the essence.
All right, so the coal and steel experiment, the ECSC, it worked well enough that they decided to try it again. Right?
Exactly. The functionalist idea, integrating sector by sector, seemed to be paying off. So by the mid-50s, they were looking at the next big strategic area.
That's what?
Atomic energy. Think about the time the Cold War is heating up. Nuclear technology is the big new thing, both promising and terrifying.
So a new community for atoms. Where was this one agreed?
This time, the key location was Rome. Euratom, the European Atomic Energy Community, was created by a treaty executed in Rome in 1957. It actually came into force in 1958.
Treaty of Rome, 1957. Okay. And structurally, was it similar to the ECSC?
In some ways, yes. Very similar. It involved the very same 6 founding states.
France, Germany, Italy, Benelux.
Correct. And like the ECSC, it had that specific sectorial focus. Euratom was all about atomic energy. Nothing else.
And the goal? Just controlling it, like coal and steel.
Well, yes and no. It was about fostering the peaceful development of nuclear energy, shared research, ensuring safety standards, making sure nuclear materials didn't proliferate dangerously within the 6, but also ensuring Europe could keep up technologically.
Peaceful uses, so research, power plants, safety, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Common standards, shared investment in a very expensive, very sensitive field.
Now, if the ECSC model worked, did they just copy its structure? Atomic energy feels even more sensitive than coal. Was the Euratom executive just as powerful as the high authority?
That's a subtle but important point. While the institutional setup looks similar on paper, the actual level of supranational power given to Euratom's executive body, its commission, wasn't quite as strong or direct as the ECSC's high authority had been. Maybe a little more caution from the member states this time.
Interesting. And what about the other institutions? Did they create a whole new court and assembly just for Euratom?
No. They learned a lesson in efficiency there. By 1957, they realized having separate courts and assemblies for each little community didn't make much sense.
So they started sharing.
Yes. From the get-go, Euratom shared the Court of Justice and the Parliamentary Assembly with the ECSC.
Okay, that makes sense. One court, one assembly overseeing both. But the executives were separate.
Initially, yes. The executive bodies, the high authority for ECSC, and the equivalent commission for Euratom and their respective councils of ministers remained distinct for each community at first. They had different powers tailored to their specific sectors. Managing steel is different from managing radioactive isotopes.
Right. But the really big difference, the one that jumps out compared to the ECSC, is the lifespan, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is the critical takeaway for Euratom. Remember, the ECSC had that 50-year deadline.
Yeah, ended in 2002.
Well, the Treaty of Rome that created Euratom, it had no expiration date. None at all.
Wow. Okay, that is a major signal. They went from, let's try this for 50 years with coal and steel to...
We're committing to cooperating on atomic energy indefinitely.
So the founders were signaling that integration, at least in these strategic areas, was meant to be permanent by this point.
That's exactly the interpretation. The lack of a sunset clause shows a much deeper commitment to long-lasting integration, and because it never expired.
Euratom is still around today.
It absolutely is still in force. It continues to operate, dealing with nuclear safety, research, and supply issues across the member states based on that original 1957 treaty.
Fascinating. Okay, quick recap for Euratom then.
Right. Euratom, think Treaty of Rome, 1957, focus, atomic energy, founders, still the 6, key difference, no expiration date, it's still active.
And a memory tip for this one.
How about atomic power equals unity forever, no deadline?
Perfect. Unity forever, no deadline. Contrasts nicely with the ECSC. Hashtag outro final takeaways and application.
So looking back, you really see that functionalist strategy playing out, don't you?
Yeah, step by step. ECSC in 51, tackling the old industrial core of war. Then Euratom in 57, addressing the next big strategic resource of the nuclear age.
Both using these very specific sectors to weave the countries together, creating these new shared structures.
And the big lesson for you listening to this is that concept of supranational institutions, right?
Absolutely. That's the revolutionary legacy. These two communities proved it was possible to go beyond just governments talking to each other, intergovernmentalism. They created bodies like the High Authority that had real independent power over national policies in certain areas, genuine collective governance.
It really was audacious when you think about it. France, Germany, bitter enemies just years before, agreeing to give up national control over coal, steel, and atomic energy, the pillars of 20th century power.
All for the sake of peace and shared prosperity. It's quite something.
It really is. And it leaves us with a final thought, connecting back to that functionalist idea of tackling sensitive sectors to build solidarity. Well, the founders targeted coal, steel, and atoms because they were the critical sensitive resources back then. If you were trying to create that kind of de facto solidarity today, using the same logic, what incredibly sensitive national sector would you choose? Maybe data, water resources, strategic tech, R&D.
Ooh, that's a provocative question.
Yeah.
What modern equivalent of coal or atomic energy would force nations into that kind of deep binding cooperation if put under shared supranational control?
Something for you to think about. What would yield the strongest unity forever today? A fascinating echo from these two foundational treaties.